Well, some of the people that I work for, they should have done that before they hired them.
All right. Anything?
I'm telling you, that should be the first thing. It's like a blood test. One of the first things on the blood test should be a vitamin D test. So when they're hiring somebody, that should be one of the first things, a behavioral test.
And honestly, there are some companies that that do that.
Some people just don't work good together.
Yeah.
Because some people don't want to work at all.
Any other thoughts about the video? Comments? Okay. So we talked a little bit already about organizational behavior and what it is, and here it is up here. This is also, of course, coming from your book, the study of how and why people behave in the workplace. We already talked about some of the disciplines that it draws from. Here's some more: psychology, social psychology, industrial psychology, sociology, communications, and anthropology. So all of these areas are also areas that involve people, working with people, and so organizational behavior ties into all of those disciplines. It's important for us to know, and they talked about in the video as well, if you were listening, that organizational behavior occurs at 3 levels. We have the individual level, group level, and the collective level. So our individual level, at the individual level, we have perceptions, attitudes, and assumptions. So it's safe to say we all have these, right? We all have perceptions, we all have attitudes, and we all have assumptions. The next level is a group, which is between individuals. So technically, we can say that this is a group. Our class is a group. And at this level, we have leadership, teamwork, and decision making. Those are the things that go on at the group level as it relates to organizational behavior. And the last level we have is collective. So this is within an organization. So if we wanted to think of a collective example, we would say school, right? FTCC is an organization. And these are the things that happen at that level. We have work structures, organizational systems, organizational culture, learning, and adaptation. So again, these are the 3 levels at which organizational behavior occurs: individual, group, and collective. And as we go through this chapter, you'll understand why each of these levels is important and how they all tie together. So we're here, we're in this healthcare management class, so we obviously at some point have to tie in healthcare. So here are some of the healthcare challenges for organizational behavior. From an industry perspective, we have rising costs and decreasing reimbursements. So what does that lead to? That leads to financial pressures. We have increased competition, more, even if you go out on Rayford Road, you'll see that there's 2 new facilities out there. So that's an example of increased competition. More businesses are opening, more businesses are becoming competitive. They're competing for patients, for business. We have consumer demands, so our patients are more knowledgeable now because they have access to the internet. Things are more transparent, and so that obviously raises their demands. We have new services, new technology, outpatient care, chronic illnesses, patient safety, quality of care, and labor shortages. You'll find that as you guys read more of these articles each week, that there's a lot of shortages coming up soon in healthcare, which is why I'm glad that every one of you are sitting in your chair, because we need all of you. From an organizational perspective, here are some of the challenges for organizational behavior: professional workforce, exacting work, high reliability, technical expertise, and professional autonomy. So these are all things within the organization that are challenging as it relates to organizational behavior. So then the take home here is to see that there's different challenges in the industry as a whole, the healthcare industry as a whole, that are different from our healthcare organizations. So all these things are happening outside of our organization. All these things are happening within our organization. So we're going to talk a little bit about cognition. Does anybody know what cognition means? Or what do you think it means?
Would be how you perceive something.
Okay, so how you perceive something. So it definitely has to do with thinking. Cognition has to do with thinking. And so to stay with your example, it also relates to mental processes, which directly relates to what you just said, and we'll get there. So it involves what information is noticed, what information is processed, and how meaning is created. So if we stop here and we think in terms of, and if you think about this, we do this all day, every day. We're always having mental processes because every time we see something, we're thinking about it and we're trying to create a meaning for it. So we also have mental processes for generating those beliefs, those perceptions, our assumptions. All of that is related to how we process things mentally. And we'll ultimately find out that how we handle information, how we process information has predictable patterns. What does this mean? Well, after you process the same things, after a while, you kind of do it effortlessly, and it becomes predictable patterns. Here's an example of a cognitive model of how we think. So we have first the situation and task, and then the thinking occurs, and then the behavior happens. So let's do an example with this. We'll go back to the first day of class. And so your situation or task was that it was the first day of class. You came in, you sat down, and then what happened? What did you observe? What did you notice? Let's backtrack and think back to the first day of class, and let's talk about some of the things that you noticed.
I thought I was doing for sure.
Okay, but before you got to that point, something else had to happen.
I just paid attention to everybody that was around me. Like,
okay, and what did you?
Everybody was doing different things. I could tell some people were in the same predicament that I was. I was lost, confused.
Well, let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning of the first day of class, because you didn't come in confused. You got there because something happened. So when you first came into the classroom and you sat down, what did you do?
I looked around to see how many other people I had in another class.
Okay, so you looked around, and what did you observe?
I had 5 people.
Okay, so you observed that you had 5 people in other classes. What else did you guys observe?
I noticed people that I knew.
Okay, you noticed people that you knew.
Different diversities.
Diversities, okay.
I kind of read my teacher a little bit.
Okay, you read your teacher. What'd you observe? Be completely honest. We're doing this on purpose.
I did too.
So
she was kind of excited a little bit. I felt like, she was kind of a little rough around the edges. Okay, this is going to be
okay, so let's stop right there. So that was that's what you observed. That's what you observed. You observed. Well, what did you observe? Because what you just said was not an observation. That was
an assumption.
So
she had a lot of energy. She was very
okay, so you
energetic.
observed that she had energy. Anybody else observe anything?
That there was only 2 males.
Okay, so you observed that there was only 2 males. Any other observations? Okay, so after your observations, then the thinking happened. So we'll start here. You saw there were 2 males. After that, did you make any type of
Tell the truth.
assumption? Did you create any type of belief? Like what did you see that there were 2 males? What did that do for you? What did you think after that? Nothing. Okay.
Whenever I saw that there were only 2 males, I thought that would be easier whenever we had to do the group project things because I'm a little intimidated by males.
Okay, so let's stop there. So you saw the 2 males and you thought that it would make the group project easier.
Yes, because we're in a group of females for the most
All right, so
part.
keep that response.
Okay.
Because we're gonna keep going. All right. Okay, you said that you saw people you knew.
Me, that was me.
That's what you observed. So then what did you think after you saw that?
The people that were in my other classes, if I had any questions from not asking you directly, like
Okay.
you could solve stuff with
All
other
right.
people first.
So you hold your response.
Okay.
Okay, you observed that. What did you observe? You observed something.
Teacher.
Teacher. Okay, so you observed the teacher. Okay, after you made your observation about the teacher having energy, then what was your next, what did you think?
I was kind of thinking like it could be a great class. So a teacher that has great energy brings great vibes to the classroom.
All right, so stop right there. Remember your comment. And then your comment was?
And I've seen different diversities.
Different diversities. So then what did that make you think?
I like to see that because I like to learn different things about other people.
Okay,
and how
all
they
right.
act and function.
Hold your comment. And then you had an observation, right? Somebody over here. Nobody else? All right, so everybody. Okay, so we had our situation. We had our observation. We thought something. So let's come back here. Are you done? Because you didn't have.
I just noticed.
All right, we'll come here. Okay, so let's come back to your example. You said you saw two males. It made you feel that working in a group was going to be easier.
Well, if we had to get in front of them, it would be easier.
Because you said
Females.
males
So,
are intimidating.
a little bit, yes.
All right, stop right there. Is it? And I'm not trying to pick on you. We go around the whole
It's
class.
okay if I get
So,
right, just know.
is anything that she just said listed
Beliefs
here?
and biases.
Beliefs, biases. Okay. All right. So
Perceptions.
again, yeah, perceptions.
Assumptions.
All right. So this is a great example. So we're gonna stop right there. Okay. But then, what was your behavior after you saw the males? You said it may make it easier. So what was your behavior? Did it put you at ease? Did you feel more
Yes.
comfortable?
I
Okay.
was- yeah.
So that was her behavior.
Yes.
So do you understand what happened? She came in, her situation task was coming into the classroom, first day of school. Her observation was that she saw two males. Then her thinking was that it would make things easier as far as the groups, which put her at ease. That was her behavior. She's more relaxed, she's more comfortable. All right? So we'll go to yours next. On the teacher, poor teacher. All right, so we came in the class, you sat down, you made an observation about the teacher was energetic. You felt that it was going to, then you had a thought that it would be a good class. Is that what you said?
Yeah, positive environment.
All right, so did she have any of those
Assumptions, perceptions.
And a belief.
a belief? Okay, and so then what was your behavior?
I was wanted to learn. I adapted to it.
So she was, I guess we could say motivated.
Yeah.
Was that her behavior? So that was her end result of her behavior based on her observations and her thinking. All right, we'll go back to your example. You said you saw a diverse population. And so that led to you thinking what?
That I would learn something from each and every one.
So knowledge.
Okay, all right. And
Knowledge.
then, yeah, knowledge. And led to what behavior?
Learning.
Okay,
Action.
so that was a good example. All right, so do you understand what happened here? And all this happened without you even really thinking about it. Because if I would not have posed the question, you wouldn't be thinking about what happened on the first day of school. It all kind of just happened effortlessly because it's something we do every day, right? But if you lay it out and you go through these examples, you'll say, wow, I was thinking a whole lot of stuff on that first day of class and didn't even realize it. And it led to a lot of behaviors and a lot of biases, beliefs, presumptions, all of these things, right? So this model is pretty cool because it shows you what happens on a day-to-day basis, not just on the individual level, but this happens, as we said before, at a group level and a collective organizational level. These things happen. So we have a situation, task, thinking, which leads to our behavior. Does that make sense? Any questions? Thank you for putting me in a positive light. Believe it or not, sometimes not always good. That's okay. Any other comments about this? Yes.
This might be going off on the other side, but by me working in the detention center, this here would be what I would say a normal person,
Okay.
you know, coming in. So then my thought goes back to people that I've seen, the children that I had in my detention center. Obviously, they lost part of this
Why do you say that?
because of the point of there may be some of it that they got, but some of it they lost because of the severity of the crimes that they done. They done some horrendous crime.
Okay, but you don't think that they still went through this process? There's nothing that says that this has to be illogical. The end result has to be logical. A reaction can be positive or negative. but it's still going to be based on some thought that they had, based on some observation or some situation that they were put in, right?
Yeah.
So good or bad, they still went through this process. They just had a different outcome. But it was still based on some type of assumption, perception, belief, bias, knowledge, which was based on a situation or a task that they were put in.
But would you say that even happens to like what we call, what is it, a crime that they call like a crime of in the heat of passion or whatever, where there's like they said they don't even remember.
Oh, what do you guys think?
I think it does. It's
That's
just their behavior.
break it down the way that you did, yeah.
Yeah, their behavior is just a bad behavior. They go through the same process. Their thinking is still based on assumptions and beliefs, but their behavior is just not a good behavior.
You're speaking in terms of someone that may try to plead insanity and say they didn't know what they were doing.
Well, you know, some of the kids that I had, I was like, where was their mind at? Because there's some
The
horrendous
thing
crimes.
is, though, there still had to be a trigger point somewhere, right? You don't just behave. There's a trigger point. Something causes your behavior.
Because some I think can be pushed or coerced. Just like
But even if they're pushed or coerced, they still thought something, even if it was fear.
Okay, let me give you one like this here. One little fella, he had killed his aunt, and they asked the question why. He was like, I just wanted to see what it felt like.
The kid's logical way of thinking isn't developed until they're like older, if you can believe it. They just don't have a logical process for
What about for ones that
adults
do?
you know, like they
For
don't
adults.
have a consequence. They don't
Because he
have-
says after the first one, the next one's easy.
Yeah, they just don't, from what I've read, kids just don't have that logical sense about them to know what is right and wrong until they get to a certain age. And males develop that later in life, allegedly. So.
Okay, but what about when you're an adult and I have anxiety, so when I feel like stuff is crowding around me, or especially when it comes to driving, if I don't know where you're at or if I'm lost, I become very erratic and yell a little bit. And
Okay. But something causes you to be that
Is
way.
it because the way that I'm thinking, like, oh my God?
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to get to. There's a trigger point that makes you erratic. You don't wake up erratic. Like, there's something that triggers you to be that, whether it's anxiety, which would fall under here because you're thinking fear or you're thinking something to trigger you to be that way.
Or it could be, if she says anxiety, the noise level, something that triggers because
Which
of
is
the
going to
noise
be her
level.
situation.
Yeah.
That's the situation she's in. It's going to trigger her to feel anxious, which is going to cause her to be erratic.
And then you gotta figure out before that happens, or if you feel like you're about to be, or something's about to happen, you gotta figure out a way to calm down. Some people, it might be something as simple as moving back your shoulders that'll cause you to calm down or feel a little bit of relief. Or you might even have to pull over to the side of the road to catch yourself.
Which again is causing you to change what?
Your behavior and
You're changing your situation to behave differently. So it always starts here.
Because I feel like you have the power, how can I say it? Let me put it in a scenario. This guy says he went into, I think it was a train station, and there was some commotion, and he makes a statement that you can change your atmosphere around you by what you say or how you do. So I feel like you have the power to change your atmosphere.
Not all the time. I wouldn't say all the time.
Well, like, if you walk into a situation with a negative way of thinking,
Stop right there. What did you just say?
With a negative way of thinking.
Thinking. Right?
Yeah.
All right, so to not get off task too much, basically this is the model, according to your book. Situation, task, thinking, behavior. Everybody get that? Okay. So we know that everyone has thinking patterns. And the thinking patterns differ from an individual level to a group level. So on an individual level, this is where you'll have most of these types of thinking patterns: your assumptions, your perceptions, your biases, schemas, framing, mental models, expectancy. Now these happen between individuals or within a group, basically. You have your expectancy theory, self-fulfilling prophecy, attributions, framing, mental models, and sense making. So again, you see here that there's differences in thinking patterns individually versus when we're in a group. So that's important to understand, and you guys will understand that as you start to work together in teams. So there's common individual thinking patterns that can obviously change your understanding. Number one, assumptions. What are assumptions? What do assumptions mean to
Something
you?
that you
Something that we thought of, our
presume to be
opinion.
true.
So opinion,
Something that you
hasn't been
assume to perceive to be true.
perceived to be true. Is there another hand? No, it's just nobody. All right. So basically, what you said, it's a fundamental premise that's believed to be true. What about perceptions? We just talked about it a little bit.
Perception is based on you as a person. Like, a person could be talking to you, you might perceive them as being aggressive, but the next person might believe that, okay, well, that's just how that person talks.
Okay, so it's safe to say it's subjective. It varies from person to person. Anybody else? Perceptions?
I think perceptions could also, it says what is noticed to what attention is paid, also with what you hear.
Okay. Oh, what you hear? Okay.
Because you might hear something, I might say something, and by the time it rolls around and gets to the bottom of your eardrum, you might think I was being mean when I didn't intend for you to perceive me that way.
Okay. All right. And then the last one is cognitive biases. So this one is mental processing that simplifies handling information that can compromise decision quality, right? Anybody have an example of a cognitive bias?
When we were talking about who would rather have male and female boss,
Okay.
some people may say if you have a female boss, she's more into what's going on in the workplace socially. A male boss does not care, he just wants his work done.
So that's, you
A
would say that's a
bias.
cognitive bias. Okay. Somebody else have a comment? No? Thought I heard somebody else. Okay. All right. Hold that thought. So now we're going to talk about thinking patterns between individuals or as a group that can alter understanding. So we have the self-fulfilling prophecy, expectations about another's behavior that can elicit the expected behavior. So basically what this means is if I expect you guys to turn in your assignments on time, it might make you guys turn it in on time, right? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe, hopefully.
Yes.
If we don't have no problems.
So self-fulfilling prophecy basically is an expectation that you have about someone else that can hopefully elicit that expected behavior to happen. Okay? Expectancy theory, not to be confused, is when managers affect employee motivation, when they influence employee expectations, right, about the ability to accomplish something. So a little bit different. Attributions, basically, we're thinking about the likely cause of someone else's behavior. Attribution theory, we're explaining someone else's behavior. Mental models, beliefs on how things work. And sense-making process, in which we basically try to make sense of things. We make meaning of things. So these are all things that happen within a group that could change somebody's understanding. So what are some lessons that we have from organizational sense-making? What happens when an organization makes sense of a situation? Number one, it may define their opportunities and their constraints. Number two, sometimes you've ever heard hindsight is 20/20. Understanding is retrospective because it comes through hindsight. This is what happens when we make sense of things as an organization. And then the last one is when we take collective action and try to make sense of things, it may not be completely accurate, right? We can try. Have you ever had a time where you were at work and your organization made a decision and that was based on because they thought they made sense of something, but it was not 100% correct or 100% the right decision?
But they're not going to say that. We perceive that.
This is true. They may not say it, But as an employee, you can.
We know it's not gonna work.
Right. So these are just some of the lessons, not all, but some of the lessons that can happen from organizational sense making. There's 5 disciplines of organizational learning. And again, these are also in your book. Number 1, system thinking, to recognize patterns of connection, striving for individual proficiency, surfacing and challenging mental models, having a common identity and shared vision, which is really important, and team learning, that reduces assumptions. Why do you think team learning could possibly reduce assumptions?
Because everybody's right there explaining their point of view.
All right, good one. Anything else?
You get to know a person.
You get to know a person.
You get to know one another, and
Right.
the things that you may have thought of may not be accurate.
Right. And like it says here, it creates a shared meaning. So as you guys work together and you get to know each other, you have something in common. So you have a shared meaning, which is probably why you guys work in teams in here, you think? Maybe? So this is good. Team learning. Communication in organizations. We want to take some time to talk about this a little bit. So sender and receiver exchange. Sometimes within the organization, we have communication barriers, and they happen for several different reasons. It can happen because of the sender's thinking and behavior. It can happen because of the receiver's thinking and behavior, or from the organizational setting. So let's try to do an example of how we might create a communication barrier. Let's say I'm the sender, you're the receiver, picking on you because you're right here. And I say that you have to be on, the situation is that you have to come and be on call this weekend, right? Now, if I mention this to you on my way out the door as I leave for the day, how are you going to receive that? Could there possibly be some communication barriers?
It depends on how long I've been with the organization.
Okay.
Because I've been in a situation where that has happened. But I knew how the organization works, so I was like, okay, got it.
Let's say you're new.
Mm-hmm.
You're new to the organization. You don't know how it works. And I say on my way out the door, by the way, you're on call this weekend. See you at 8, and I just leave. Was there any communication barriers there?
Quite a few.
Quite a few. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me why.
Because one thing, you didn't explain what do I do when I'm on call.
Okay.
So I have no idea what to do.
Okay. And so that's a good one. And how was my behavior as I explained that to you?
You was in a hurry to get out.
I was in a hurry. I was
Nonchalant.
nonchalant. Probably wasn't paying you much attention. So so my behavior probably attributed to the communication barrier, right? Okay. So let's change the example a little bit, and let's say that I'm not on my way out the door, but you are working, and let's say we're in a hospital, and let's say you're in a room with a patient, and you're checking vitals or something, and I come in and I say you're on call this weekend. Might there be any communication barriers there from the receiver's end?
Yes.
Why so?
Because, for one thing, you picked the wrong time to tell me that I was on call.
I picked the wrong time to tell you. And what might your behavior be at that time?
That you're trying to set me up.
Not your thoughts, your behavior.
Oh, I would have an attitude.
You have an attitude, but before that, your behavior might be that you're distracted because you're you're checking vitals, you're providing patient care. So the fact that your behavior, you're not focused on me, or it's not the right setting, could affect the communication barriers, right? All right. And then the last way that a communication barrier might happen is from the organizational setting. So let's say that we're going to use the same example about being on call this weekend, and the organization sends out a mass email to you and your employees about having to be on call this weekend. But we send this message out at 6 o'clock on Friday. Any communication barriers
Ain't
possibly?
nobody gonna get that message, cause they gone.
All right. So that might be an example from an organizational position of a communication barrier, right?
After 4 o'clock, ain't nobody checking emails.
So the important thing here to take home is that in order to have effective communication, it needs to be on point from the sender's end, from the receiver's end, and from the organizational end.
Right.
Does that make sense? Because, and by doing so, then we will achieve we will have the understanding part. If something falls off, then we're gonna have those barriers, and we're not gonna have that exchange that we need in terms of communication. Does that make sense? Any questions? We're gonna stop here because I'm not gonna have time to get into the next topic. So I will see you guys on Thursday.